All right. All right, welcome back to KPRC 2 as we continue our coverage of Hurricane Beryl. At last check, it is now at a Category 1. We were just talking about when it hit, supposed to make landfall in Matagorda Bay area right about now, but we've had a lot of questions about that. Talk about that.
So we've been talking about the timing here. We've been showing this time going back to yesterday, 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning. We're now at 2 and it is really close. But the thing is with a Category 1, especially on the lower end Category 1, when you're used to seeing powerful hurricanes, that eye it's just a perfect circle, so symmetrical. On a 1, it kind of looks like this.
It's just like
yeah, so it's not. So it's hard to see exactly where the center of circulation is and if it's on land just yet. Okay. The point is it's really close, and already we're seeing a lot of effects, especially along our coastal cities where the heaviest rain has been over the past several hours. In fact, when you look at our live Storm Tracker 2 radar, you see that red outlined area. And so we now have a flood warning. We went from a flood advisory to a flood warning. And so I'm going to give you just a little radar tour of everything that's happening here. So there's the eye, first of all. And so do you see how it almost looks like a horse's head? There's the nose and the eye and then the mane back here. It's hard to see exactly where that center of circulation is, but it's pretty much close to being on land. Now ahead of that is where we're seeing the heaviest rain from Bay City, Sweeney, Lake Jackson, all the way into Freeport. And so what we have here, let's see, a flash flood warning. It expires at 4:45, so we're 2 hours and 45 minutes away from this expiring. And so look at this. Over the past hour, look how in this area the rain just is unrelenting. It is heavy. You get no breaks. There's a couple breaks here and there of light rain up to the north and to the south, but for the most part, it's just torrential. And then when you look at the past 3 hours here, you get an idea of just how consistent this is in this area. And so here's the last 3 hours. You have a line of heavy rain. There comes a really heavy downpours. And what you're seeing is consistency. And that's really the issue with tropical systems. It is moving at 10 miles per hour, but those outer rain bands, it's just so consistent and so heavy that we now do have a flash flood warning that is going on right now. So let's go ahead and stop this, and I'll widen out just a little bit to take a look if there's anything else we need to analyze here. It just doesn't really look like it, but just a note for the Houston area, what we've got so far is just a little light rain, more of a moderate downpour or moderate shower here and there. No lightning also with this. This is really interesting. Dodgy and I were just talking about this. I'm going to widen back out. There are no lightning strikes here. In fact, I can click that on for you. 0 lightning strikes. Now, that's actually a little more common than you would think, having a tropical system. And the reason is there's a lot of stability over the water. And so even as it makes land, look at these outer rain bands are going to be moving on through. Because of that stability, you're not getting a lot of instability, and you need that for lightning to form. And so you're just not seeing that. So it is kind of interesting that there are actually 0 lightning strikes with this system. But there's the eye. It's pretty close to making land really any moment now. We do have a serious situation with a flood warning that is in effect, and all of that is going to be moving into the Houston area as we move throughout the rest of the morning. And so really the effects are just beginning. They've been here along the coastline. They're about to move into the Houston area, and they'll continue to move up to the north for the rest of the day. Sophia.
Yeah, Anthony. And Anthony was just talking about the relentless rain, that consistent rain, those bands moving in as Hurricane Beryl. Category 1 Hurricane Beryl is set to make landfall any moment now. So right now we're going to check in with our Rochelle Turner. She is joining us live from Surfside Beach, where some folks there have already lost power. Rochelle, I can see the winds. I can see the rain just battering behind you. Tell us about what you're seeing there.
Yeah, Sophia, the power just came back on. Well, you can see it's flickering on and off. You can actually hear Hurricane Beryl. The wind is howling. Now, we're standing underneath a gas station. We're going to take a few steps out just to show you guys how strong this wind is. Now, I don't have a wind gauge, but according to my phone, the wind speed is 40 miles per hour, but the wind gust feels like 60. Now, as I turn backwards, the wind is trying to push me ahead, and just when you turn this way, it's just pushing me away, and the rain feels like little pellets hitting you in the face. That is how strong Hurricane Beryl is here on Surfside Beach. Now, we have seen trash and debris pushing this way from these storms, but it is some strong wind that is starting to make its way here on Surfside officers driving around, cars driving around. But this is some really strong wind. If you're not strong enough, it will knock you over. So it's kind of getting some wind speed about 70 miles per hour. That is really scary for this area. But as I mentioned, we have seen the power flicker on and off here in the past 30 minutes, and we're seeing some of that storm surge and flood here on the ground. Now, when we showed you earlier this morning, when we were out as a group, it's not safe for us to go that way right now. That is why we took shelter here at the gas station. But incredibly strong wind here on Surfside Beach as Hurricane Beryl is expected to make landfall here in the Matagorda Bay. And the next few minutes, we're going to stay out here and continue to monitor the situation. For now, 45 Surfside, I'm Michelle Turner, KPRC. Woo, she's strong.
Rochelle, I'm going to have you step forward kind of in the shelter from the high winds, because that high wind is making it really difficult to understand you. But we can just see how powerful those winds are. It's so difficult for you to even stand out there.
Yes, it's very, very strong. I mean, my phone says it's 40 miles per hour right now, the wind speed, and the wind gust is 60 miles per hour. And so if this is going to get up to 70, 75 miles per hour, that is extremely concerning and scary for a lot of people. We do see people here parked at this gas station. They have just been sitting here like us, taking shelter. Thankfully, those officers were able to get out here earlier today, knock on these beach front homes and tell people to evacuate, because it is just that dangerous. We've been seeing the power flicker on and off, and being so close to the Gulf of Mexico, Sophia and Anthony, that is extremely dangerous. We saw that storm surge starting to push in from those waves, and if anyone is out there, they are going to be in some serious trouble. Yeah, so you got to make sure that you are paying attention to those warnings.
Yeah, if you have time to evacuate, for sure, but you guys staying put now is definitely the safest for you. I can see the flooding behind you. Can you talk about how high that water has gotten since you've been there? Is that the surge? Is it getting higher as we speak?
So this seems to just be the rain just kind of moving in. Further out on the road is where some of that storm surge is. We're just right at the entrance from where we are from Surfside Beach. I do want to show you just across the street there, those porta potties were knocked over here in the past 10 minutes, because before we got out of the truck, they were still standing. So it is a lot of storm surge and just rain that is starting to flood the streets. And so when we were further back towards the beach entrance, it was just all that water pushing in from the Gulf of Mexico that was just sitting there. So I would be surprised to see if it's probably reached maybe a foot, maybe 2 feet now, that we're now starting to see Beryl make her way into this area.
Yeah, okay, Rochelle, you be safe out there, and we're going to check back in with you again soon. We're definitely feeling it for you right now. Thank you for being out there in these elements and really showing us what the folks there are dealing with. All right, we're gonna head over now to Galveston. That is where our Mario Diaz was out there earlier, feeling the dirty side of the storm, feeling those winds just battering you. Mario, talk about, what has changed. You're now under some shelter, I see.
Well, if you're going to use the term the dirty side, we've cleaned ourselves up a little bit. We did have to go get some shelter to protect ourselves from this wind. It just started really, if you've been out here before, we were right on the other side of the San Luis Pass, coming from Surfside, heading towards Galveston. And we were there in the middle of nowhere, and we just started looking around, and it just picked up right after our last live shot. And my photographer, Roger Franco, and I said, you know what, let's go get some shelter for the next shot and start making our way back towards Galveston, and the reason is because there's a seawall over there, and a lot of people have evacuated from here in the west end because of the fact that there is no seawall, and they're concerned about that storm surge. But let me show you what the wind here is doing and what the scene looks like. We've got the storm tracker lighting things up for you to give you some perspective. You can see up at the palm trees, and we're starting to see the gusts. They've come and gone, no doubt. The stronger winds were here just a few minutes ago, but it's coming in waves, and obviously that brings concern. And I say that from the perspective of a couple of people who are actually staying in this complex that I'm in right now. They were outside. We pulled in, and I said, you guys didn't leave? And they said, no, we actually just got here today. We wanted to start our vacation, and we weren't going to let this storm deter us from it. But they were down here watching things very carefully. Again, the big concern in this part of Galveston Island is the storm surge. And we've been hearing a lot about storm surge, and what does that truly mean? Well, here in this location, we're looking at about 3 to 6 feet of storm surge. And there we go. I've got 3 feet right there. And if you look at how tall I am, I'm just over 6 feet tall. So the storm surge is from that location up to where I stand. And what does that mean overall? Well, that's where the height is, where the waves typically break on the sand. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be that way here where I'm standing. The beach, from what I'm told, is about a quarter of a mile to my left. So by the time it gets to this location, it will be much lower. Will it flood? Absolutely it will flood, if it's strong enough, of course. But you have to keep in mind that storm surge is indicative of what we're seeing there on the shoreline. I know Anthony will talk about this some more as well, because we were talking about it in great detail back at the station before we rolled out earlier this evening. But that's something to keep in mind about what storm surge looks like when you're talking about 3 to 6 feet for this location. We know it's much higher further south from where we are and where that Beryl is obviously making landfall. But again, this is the scene behind us here. You can see all the natural wildlife, the vegetation there just blustering in the wind, just moving around, and it's been coming down sideways in terms of the rain here for well over 45 minutes. We, of course, are going to start making our way back towards Galveston, where the seawall is located, and we'll be providing updates along the way. But in Galveston, just on the other side of the San Luis Pass, I'm Mario Diaz, KPRC 2 News.
All right, Mario, we appreciate that report, and you guys be safe out there. We'll check back in with you again soon. All right, are we going to check in with Gage now at this point? Okay, we're going to head over to Matagorda Bay. This is an area that is expected to get hit real hard by Beryl as it makes its way onto landfall here. So Gage is inside of a home. This is typically a home where families live, and many are staying. They're sticking it out just like you guys are, Gage. So what have you seen in the last maybe 20 minutes since we've talked to you?
Yeah, I'd say in the last 20 minutes, I'm joined by photojournalist Oscar Chavez, who's been doing remarkable work, as all of our photojournalists have, the hardworking team behind the lens of the camera, just working nonstop through these conditions. Last 20 minutes, I think the most surprising thing was we just took a look at the road outside Beach Drive, and unfortunately our truck outside, and I'm not sure if that is going to be drivable tomorrow. That's a tomorrow issue, but this storm surge, how quick it came up was kind of surprising. And we were just talking from our sister station, KSAT in San Antonio. They have a team out here. They managed to and made the decision, for their own safety to go ahead and retreat back to higher ground as the storm surge came in. But even they remarked how quickly it came in. I mean, to me, that was surprising. It was 1 minute it wasn't, 1 minute it wasn't.
Well, we kept checking the road, and I remember, I gotta say, probably 10 minutes intervals. We were going, check, and nothing on the street, nothing on the street. And then from one to the next check, it was like the truck was nearly, well, not flooded, but it was covered already. I was surrounded by water.
Yeah, and it's hard to see because the truck is parked, out this window behind us, but that's the wind. That's the window where all the wind is coming. That's, from the east, and that's where all that force is coming. So, admittedly, we haven't gone down there for obvious reasons. It's simply not safe. But for as much as we can see, it doesn't look like a good situation. And for what it's worth, this is the locals. There's a couple that was pulling out right next to us as we were pulling in, and they said, "This is, hey, you should be good. This is the higher part of the island." So there's that. So, or I shouldn't say island, but of the road.
Which to say, it was a little comforting to hear that.
Sure, and it's, my next point, I guess it's comforting whenever they tell you, and I lived in Florida before I moved here to Houston, and I've been through hurricanes. I think there's number 7 tropical system covering, is what we did the math on the drive from Port Lavaca today. But it's never comforting whenever the whole building starts shaking.
No, well, you compared it to being on a boat.
Yeah.
And I made a comment growing up in California that it felt like an earthquake, but like in slower motion. So it was like, it's still the same kind of rocking back and forth, but it really felt like an earthquake, but slow. Like if you had played it in slow motion, that rocking back up. It's similar to a boat as well, but that's just, being that I lived through earthquakes, that is what clicked.
And it's weird though because and I keep going back to this because we had this conversation, the both of us, because we got here and we looked at it, we evaluated it, had this conversation with Anthony Yanes before we were committed to stay here. Is it safe? And it's like these buildings are designed to move, and it's like, what? They're designed to move, and it doesn't make sense. But they're designed to ebb and flow. But it's not a comforting feeling when you're walking around and things are shaking. We showed that to you a little bit ago.
There was a moment. I mean, we felt this. You felt it first since the beginning, but there was a moment in the last half hour or so where it really, really rocked. Like, I think that was the hardest. Like, it was right after it hit the 100. Or the 93 something miles per hour. That when it really rocked.
And he's talking about this anemometer. I think Rochelle was talking about this earlier. It's a little device that measures wind speed. And outside, we caught a gust at 93.9, and then ran it again, and it actually maxed out the anemometer. So that's obviously indicative of very high wind gust out here in Matagorda. And if you're not familiar with the area, there's the Colorado River on one side, and there's the bay on the other side, and at the end there's the Gulf of Mexico. So you're talking about a little tiny strip of land. There's not a whole lot of land to go through. But one thing Anthony was saying is just any minute now, we should be, getting into the eye. Can you hear it? Because it doesn't. It's still just roaring. I don't want to say it's ramping up because I feel like it's like a smidge, just one hair below. But it certainly isn't. It isn't peaceful and serene to go take a walk outside.
Well, and being the person behind the lens, I gotta say it's a different thing to actually get your sight out of the camera and look down and see the water like really coming under the house and just coming out the other. It's a different. It's kind of like the whole, comforting feel when you're on that behind the lens, and then you take your eyes out of the camera and then like, oh wait a minute, this is for real. It's like
it's a surreal thing.
Yeah. It is,
and that's the scary thing is because going back to how quickly the storm surge can rise is the roads are built up to fend off the water so the everyday rainstorm won't flood out the roads, but when that water pushes up and over and over and over, it builds up, and as soon as it crests that road, it's game over. I mean, you could be trying to evacuate in that moment and be stuck halfway out or almost to the finish line, if you will, to get out. And those things, it can happen so quick. So I think the biggest surprise is how quickly it came up and just how forceful this wind has been. This is for people watching home, it's a new-ish construction built in 2017. It's a very beautiful home, very nice home. We're very thankful for the opportunity to stay here, and it's been holding up well. The only issue is a little leak on the window that's been getting battered with 100+ mile-an-hour wind. So
and we didn't lose power until what, maybe
I think 1:30.
Something like that. Yeah,
it was 1:30 because I was shocked at how long. But those are just some of our takeaways as we inch closer to being in this eye, which is always an incredible experience, and I can't wait to bring that to you here live whenever we can just walk out and be in that moment of almost pure serene if the eye passes over Matagorda. We'll send it back to you.
Gage and Oscar, my hat's off to you, because I would not be as calm and composed as the two of you are, really painting the picture for our viewers, walking us through each and every moment. I can see you guys swaying back and forth too physically when you're talking about, the home moving and ebbing and flowing, but it is really comforting to know, that other families are there as well. They say that this is what the home is built for. So we are with you in spirit and appreciate your hard work, and we'll see you in about 10 more minutes, because we're going to be going wall to wall here at 2:30. So to our crews, be safe out there. To anyone who is thinking about getting out on the roadways, I suggest that you don't. You stay put, and you download the KPRC2 Plus app for alerts. We're talking about significant flooding, heavy rain, tornado warnings as Hurricane Beryl, Category 1 now, is set to make landfall any moment. We're keeping an eye on that. Again, in about 10 minutes, we're going to be wall-to-wall coverage here on KPRC2 Plus and on the live stream. So tune in about 10 minutes. We'll be right back.